be making the Mini Magda Wristlet by Oro Rosa Patterns. It consists of a wristlet strap, one zipper, and then just an open interior. There are no pockets on the inside. It is finished with binding, and in my tutorial I show you how I bind it with waterproof canvas. My exterior material is faux suede from Indo Love Creations, and I hope that you enjoy this tutorial, and please subscribe if you do. So the first step in our pattern is going to be fusing all of our interfacing. I have done that already. So both of my exterior pieces got Decovil Heavy fused, and I do press those with a heat press. I've also installed my logo on here already. I chose to put mine in the front on the center. You could do it anywhere, just be aware of your seam allowance so that it's not too close to your seams. And I also placed my interfacing on my gusset piece. This is a piece of Decovil Light. The next step after you fuse all of your stabilizer would be to work with your main exterior panels and your main interior panels. And for this step, I will have my main exterior panel wrong side up, and then take my main interior panel wrong side down, so they will be wrong sides together, and baste all along this curve at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I'll do that now on both the front and the back panel. Now that you have your main panels for the interior and the exterior basted together, you can set these to the side, and we will work on the zipper next, which I didn't cut. So there's that. Before I sew my zipper onto my panels, I will install my pull onto my zipper tape. Then I'm going to mark the centers of my zipper tape. You can do that by cutting a really tiny snip out of the tape, or you can mark it with a writing utensil, however you feel comfortable doing it. You should have 4 zipper panel pieces, 2 exterior and 2 interior. I'm going to start by taking the paper backing off of the double-sided tape on one of the exteriors, matching up my centers, and I did cut my zipper longer so that my pull will stay out of my way while I'm sewing this together. So match up the centers. Once you've done that, I'll take off the backing on the double-sided tape on one of my linings and place this right side down over the zipper tape, matching up your centers and making sure your edges are matched up as well. So you should have this. It should be right sides together with the exterior and the interior, and the zipper tape in the center with the right side of the tape facing the exterior. Now I will sew all of this together right along this line here at 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once you have that, you can go ahead and fold everything open and press everything away from the zipper. So you should be pressing things wrong side together this time. I like to clip my exterior and my interior together, just kind of keep them in the right spot. Then you're going to sew 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, top stitching right along here on the seam that you created. This is what you should have. So now I'm going to repeat it and do the same thing for the other side of the zipper tape. Once you have both panels on, you can go ahead and top stitch along the edges here. If you want, you could also pull your zipper in at this point and you could top stitch across the edge here as well, just to keep everything closed up. Nice, nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Once you have all that done, you can feel free to trim some of this off. I'm not going to trim it all off. I do like to leave a little bit of extra on each side just to be sure the zipper doesn't, if it frays, it's not going to fray all the way into the actual exterior of the project. So I'll trim that down now. And then I will go ahead and just melt the ends of my zipper just to help prevent any fraying. Once your zipper panel is complete, you can set that to the side. Next, I will work on the D-ring tab. So I have already placed a piece of double-sided tape down the center. I'll take that off and then I'm going to fold both of my long edges into the center line that I drew. Once you have the long edges folded in, you can top stitch 1/8 of an inch away down each long edge. After that, Just be sure that you have the right side facing out, and then place your D-ring in the middle, meet the raw edges, and just baste it together at a 1/4 inch seam allowance at the edge, just to hold everything together for now. Now that you have your D-ring connector completed, you'll bring back out your zipper panel, and you'll be placing the D-ring connector with the ring facing in. And I like to put it on the end where my zipper closes at. So the end that your zipper will be on when it's closed is where I like to place it. But that's a personal preference. You can put it on either side. So I'm going to slide my zipper down just a little bit, make room for my D-ring, and I am going to put it on here so that it's about halfway hanging off. And then make sure it's centered with your zipper tape, and go ahead and baste that on at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you have that on here, I'm not going to trim it down. I am going to leave it nice and long so that the tail will be in the seam allowance. After that, you can go ahead and get your gusset pieces. So you should have 2 gusset pieces, 1 exterior and 1 interior. So I have my exterior, and it was interfaced according to the pattern, and then my interior. I'm going to move my zipper to the center, and I'm going to place my gusset exterior right sides together with my zipper panel, and I'm make sure that I have lined up the centers nicely. And you will notice that your gusset is slightly wider than your zipper panel. It should be that way. So you can either choose to baste this here at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, or you can add on your interior piece and have all 3 pieces together and sew one time, which is exactly what I'm going to do. And then I will sew all of that together with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once you have that, you can go ahead and pull the exterior and the interior away from the zipper panel. So at this point, they should be wrong sides together. And you will go ahead and top stitch right along here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Making sure to pull nice and tight. Be sure that everything is flat and where you want it to be. And this is what you should have. So I have the top stitching here. Now you're going to repeat everything for the other side. So you're going to bring this exterior piece up, center it with your zipper panel, and clip that in place. And then same thing with the interior panel. You're going to bring that one up, center it, and match it up with your exterior that you've already got there, and clip it in place as well. and then you'll sew a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Now we'll do the same. We're going to flip everything right side out, so wrong sides together. And pull everything nice and tight and go ahead and top stitch the side just like we did the other side. So you're going to top stitch right in here, along here. Now you can go ahead and flip everything right side out. And this is what you should have right now, this circle. At this point, I'm going to match up all of my center pieces, or my center snips on all of my pieces. And I will baste everything together at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance for the gusset, just like we did for the zipper panel. After you have everything basted together, you should just have one large circle. I like to mark my centers just to be sure everything is still correct. And it is. So then I'm going to fold it the opposite way, matching up the centers that we already have marked. And then I'm going to snip the centers for the other side here. So right here. I'm so sorry, my dog is snoring. Okay, so now you should have 4 center snips on all parts of your exterior and interior gusset and zipper panel combination. You can install rivets. If you want to install a rivet, you would do it 3/8 of an inch down from here. I will go ahead and do that. So I'm going to mark a dot on here, 3/8 of an inch centered down from the top. And then I will punch that hole out. Once you have your rivets installed, flip your zipper and gusset panel wrong side out, and then open your zipper all the way for yourself. And you're going to start by matching up the 4 center snips with the 4 center snips on your gusset and zipper panel. So do that and then clip everything together. I start with the 4 snips that I made first though, so this way you can ease everything else in after that. Once you have everything clipped, you can go through and you can start stapling in place of clips and removing the clips just to keep everything together. Or you could leave it clipped and just go ahead and sew around it. Depending on your binding method is going to depend on the seam allowance that you use here. So in the pattern, she indicates to use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance here. And then she puts on double fold bias tape at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Fold it over and stitches one final time at 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to be using waterproof canvas for my binding. So here I'm going to be stitching this on at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And then I will be applying my waterproof canvas binding at 3/8 of an inch. So we're going to end up with the same size and the same final seam allowance. I'm just not using double fold. So I'm going to go ahead and start stitching this, and I will stitch it down at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you have the front attached, you can turn it out, right side out, just to see how it looks. Make sure there's no significant puckering, and that you caught everything the way you expected. No puckering. It looks pretty good. So here's where we're at for now. I'm going to grab my 1 inch waterproof canvas binding, and then I'm going to apply double-sided tape to both sides of my binding just to hold it on here, and then I'm going to stitch that down at 3/8 of an inch. So here's my binding. I found that 2 24-inch strips is more than enough. You could probably get away with even 18 inches, but I like to have a little extra. So I'll apply double-sided tape to both edges of it just to help everything stay together. Once you have your double-sided tape on your binding strips, I'm going to take the paper off of one edge. And I like to start it at the top because that's the place where it's least likely to be seen. I meet the edge up about the halfway mark on the binding. You can make a line on your binding halfway in the center just to help if you need it. I don't find it super necessary because even if it's not 100% halfway accurate, nobody's going to see it when you're done. Especially if it matches the same color as your interior like mine does. And then my thread will also match the color of my binding. So really, don't stress about the binding part. Nobody's ever going to see it except for you. Once you get back to the beginning, I go ahead and trim off the excess. And this is what you should have. Then I'm going to pull this piece back and I'm going to peel off the paper on the other half of the double-sided tape. And we're going to fold it over and stick that part down as well. Now you have your binding is covering all of your raw edges and it's staying on without any help because I did put double-sided tape on it. So at this point you can go ahead and stitch this all the way around at 3/8 inch seam allowance, and then you will be done with this part, and we'll repeat all of those same steps for the back panel. Here I'm just pulling back my binding a little bit. It was pretty wide with the seam allowance that I took, so I'm pulling it all up and away, and I'm cutting off about 1/4 of an inch so that it's not on my main panel, making it look funky here. So you could even make your binding 3/4 of an inch wide instead of 1 inch wide if you wanted. Okay, once your binding is on, you can go ahead and flip it back out, make sure everything still looks good and looks the way you want it to. Looks great. So now I'm going to do the same exact thing to attach the back panel. We're almost done. All right, now I have my back piece and my binding on, and we're going to go ahead and turn it and see how it turned out. Okay, so this is all complete. The only thing we have left to do is make these wristlet strap that will attach right here. So let's do that. So now I'm going to move on to my wristlet strap. I am going to do it a little bit different than indicated in the pattern. So I do have the strap cut to the dimensions that she gives. And the first thing I'm going to do is draw a line 1 inch up from one of the edges and place a piece of double-sided tape right along there. And I'm going to fold this edge up by a 1/2 inch, so meeting right up to that line. And I'm going to add another piece of double-sided tape. Okay, and you should have double-sided tape all along the length of the strap, right down the center. I'm going to fold both long edges in to meet the center line that we drew. Once you have your long edges folded in, you can then fold this all in half again and go ahead and stitch from 1/8 inch down each side. I'm going to check my bobbin first just to make sure I have enough, and I do. Then I'm going to put my snap hook on the unfinished edge and slide it all the way down to the finished edge where you have all of your raw edges folded in. Bring it to about 1 inch away from the edge. Fold that over. Then take the unfinished edge and fold that up in the center in between here, so it should be meeting right up against your snap hook. And you can, at this point, either sew this down, rivet it down, or both. So I'm going to give it a couple of stitches here, sewing it, and then I will also set a rivet. You may want to just set a rivet. It depends on the material that you're using. This is very thick right here, so I'm using a faux suede, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 layers of faux suede here. Not every machine will be able to do this, so a rivet is perfectly fine as well. And my wristlet strap is complete. And the last thing you do is go ahead and clip it right on here. And your mini Magda is done. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a like, and I hope you subscribe and come back for more tutorials. See you next time.